This video will show you how to select things in list boxes and do things with those selections. So what we have here is a form to which I have added a couple of labels. We have a label that tells the user to enter distance. We have a label that shows the distance. Actually, a couple of labels, one to label the results and one to actually show the results. And I have a text box for the user to enter the input. I also have two buttons, button convert, button exit, to exit the program and do some conversion. I have a group box just for the sake of labeling this list box, and I also have two list boxes. So I have group box to label them each, and I have a list box. To the list boxes, I have added a couple of items. You go to the items, you click on collection, and you just list what you see here on a new line, and that becomes new items on your list box. And I have done the same thing with my list box for the metric conversions. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to select inches, feet or yards, and then we're going to select meters or centimeters, and we're going to convert from these to the metric. So how is this going to work? Well, we're going to have to add event to the convert button. The exit button already has an event for the closing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of variables that are going to be used for my calculations. Well, they're going to be used to hold decimal numbers, so we need doubles. And what we're going to do is we're going to first attempt to read what the user enters in my text box input, right? So the name of my text box is input, and what we're going to do here is we're going to attempt to read from the input text box, and we're going to try to convert whatever the user enters into a double and then store it into this variable. And if our code is, if our attempt is successful, we really don't want anything to happen. So I'm just not going to put any code in there. However, if my attempt is not successful, then I will have to go and put an else after this if, and I'm going to put a message box telling the user that they didn't enter a value. So that's going to handle the issue of the user not entering a value. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to add also a check to see if my list boxes have been selected. And the way I'm going to do that is right after my else here, right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this piece of code. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if list box feet select index equals -1 or list box metric select index equals -1. This basically means that the user hasn't clicked and selected anything here. If it's -1, that means that neither of them has been selected, or either one or one of them has not been selected. So if one or the other hasn't been selected, we're going to give this error message. Now, if that is not the case though, that means that now both of them have been selected, and then I'm just going to go ahead and add an else. So basically the else now is if both have been selected, I'm going to check a couple of things. So first thing I want to check to see is if my list box feet select index equals 0. So if my list box feet selected index equals 0, that would mean that the inches here was selected. Okay, so if the inches was selected, then I also need to go and see which one here was selected. So they want to convert inches, but is it to meters or centimeters? So now we're going to go in there and we're going to check to see which one was selected. So inside of this if, I'm going to add another if, So this time we're going to have an if, and this time if the list box metric, if this one here, the selected index is 0, if that is the case, that means that my meters were selected. Then I know that the conversion has to be, I know that 1 inch is equal to 0.25 meters, and I just do the multiplication, right? And I'm going to do similar thing for my centimeters. I'm going to go ahead in there and I'm going to check to see if my selected index is 1 for the metric list box. That means the centimeters were selected. And then if that is the case, then I'm going to multiply by 2.54. So this basically handles the case when inches were selected. All right, that's this one. So now what we need to do is we also need to add additional checks for the feet and yards. So what we need to go in there and do is similar thing as we did right now. So we're going to add another if. This time if list box feet select index is equal to 1, that means if feet were selected in here, we need to go and check to see which one from the metric list box was selected. If the 0 was selected, meters was selected, and we're going to multiply by this number. And if selected index is 1, then that means centimeters was selected, and we're going to multiply by this number. The last thing we need to do is check to see now if my yards was selected. And for the yards, the code is just going to be right here. Okay, so if list box feet, or this list box here is selected index is 2, so remember, first index is 0, second is 1, so third index is 2, that means the yards is selected. Then we're going to go in there, we're going to check to see whether meters were selected, and if so, we're going to multiply by 0.914, and we're also going to check to see if my centimeters were selected, and if that is the case, we're going to multiply by 91.44. So that is basically in a nutshell what we need to do, and the only thing that's left now is for us to show the results. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert those results. I'm going to show the results as soon as this else here is done. Okay, so right before this else is done, actually, not as soon. So right before it's done, I'm going to insert a label, results text. Label results is this right here. So we're going to change the text of this to whatever the value of this number is that we're trying to convert. And it seems like we have to close another curly bracket. Let's try that. And there we go. They're all closed. And let's have a look at my code one more time. All right, this is all inside my button convert click. I start with my variables, declaring some variables, asking the user to enter those, to enter a value, checking to see if no value is entered, then making sure that the list boxes are selected, and then making some calculations based on what was selected and updating the text of my label. So let's have a look at, see if this works. Run the program. And first I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to hit convert, and it detects that no value was entered. It also detects that I did not select these here. So let's try now. I'm going to select a number, 1 inch, and I want to convert this to, but I'm not going to enter anything. I still did not select the meters, so let's select meters. So 1 inch is 0.25 meters. 1 inch is convert 2.57 meters. Or feet is 30.48 centimeters, or meters 0.34, yards is 0.9 meters, and in centimeters it's 91.4.